Welcome to the premiere of W&L Sports Weekly. I'm your host, Jeremy Franklin. Coming up on the show this week, we'll hear from men's basketball head coach Adam Hutchinson, wrestling captain John Christopher, and women's swimming captain Julianne Miata. But first, a quick look back at the weekend in Washington and Lee sports. Junior Zach White scored with 1.6 seconds remaining in the second half to lift the men's basketball team to a 68-66 win over 18th-ranked Roanoke at the Bass Center in Salem on Saturday. White scored 18 of his game-high 22 points after halftime, and the Generals overcame a 14-point second-half deficit to hand the Maroons their first ODAC loss of the season. The women's swimming team picked up its first ever win against Gettysburg College, downing the Bullets 135-127 in Lexington. Senior Lindsey Strachan swam on the winning 200 medley relay team and won 2 individual events, breaking a 26-year-old pool record in the 200 backstroke. For her efforts, Strachan was named the ODAC Swimmer of the Week. Men's swimming also defeated Gettysburg 159-100. Senior Paul Crook won the 100 freestyle and 200 IM and swam on 2 winning relay teams as well. In wrestling, the Generals placed 4th out of 8 teams in the annual W&L Invitational. Senior Rob Tarrin won the 165-pound bracket, while classmate John Christopher claimed the 285-pound title. And again, we'll hear from John in a moment. The women's basketball team dropped a pair of heartbreakers over the weekend. On Friday, the Generals lost 71-68 at home against Roanoke despite 16 points from sophomore Felice Herman. Less than 24 hours later, W&L fell 70-69 at Bridgewater as the Eagles' Bianca Booker scored a putback with just 3 seconds left. First-year Becca Bolton tallied 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 steals in the loss. Coming up in a moment, I'll speak with head coach Adam Hutchinson. What have been the keys to your team's ability to shut down opposing offenses?
No, it's really just hard work and effort. When you do it in practice, if you're willing to work hard every day in practice, you develop the cohesion. You reach a point where if I get beat, I know you're going to help. So having that faith in your teammates allows you to not panic and foul. And we've been doing the hard work on a daily basis, and the effort's been there, and the attention to detail's been there, and it pays off in games.
What needs to happen for Washington Lee to develop more consistency on the offensive end?
I always look at turnovers and ball movement. If we don't turn the ball over, we generally play pretty well. If we move the ball, we generally play pretty well. But I think that in the ODAC, it's tough to put up, real pretty offensive numbers. The games are so hard fought that you're just going to have some ugly offensive numbers relatively consistently. And I think in our league, the key to winning is, who's able to stay the course the longest and make the hustle plays.
Your team snapped a long losing streak to Hampton-Sydney with a 15-point win in Lexington last year. Just one regular season meeting between the Generals and the Tigers here in 2008-2009, which is Saturday at 7 o'clock. What are the keys to a victory over the Tigers this year?
We have to keep our poise. They changed defenses quite a bit, so we can't allow that to fluster us. We have to contain Turner King, which is easy to say and very, very hard to do. And then, we can't allow them to outwork us. Sydney is, I think over the years, has developed a well-deserved reputation of toughness. And we have to make sure that we're tougher than them on Saturday night.
Coach, we thank you for joining us, and we wish you good luck against Hampton-Sydney.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Joined now by John Christopher, senior wrestling captain from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. John, I want to take you back 4 years ago. What factors did you consider when choosing to play an intercollegiate sport at Washington and Lee?
I think there was really a lot that went into it. One of the big factors that I considered initially was my sister, who graduated in 2005 and was a track and cross country captain. So that played a large part in it. But at the same time, I think balance is something that is emphasized so much at W&L. You have great athletics program, obviously great academics here, and a great group of students. So one of the things that I looked at when coming here was visiting and seeing how the wrestlers were. And after getting a chance to meet them, I saw myself fit in. And after hearing their stories of the wrestling team and how the athletic work-life balance and all that really came together was probably one of the big tipping points for me and what was the determining factor in me coming to W&L.
Who has been the most influential person during your time here at Washington and Lee?
That's actually a question I've been thinking about, and I got a little heads up with these questions, so I thought a significant amount on who was the most influential person. It took me a little while, but I think going back to that first question, the small size of W&L makes it for a lot of people have a big influence on your life here. So the wrestling coach, Coach Gary Frankie, has played a huge role in my life in terms of the amount of time we spend together, the amount of times we spend on the bus, and the life lessons learned from him. But at the same time, we have 20-person classes, so the teachers, you get a chance to meet all your teachers. They know you, and by the end of the semester, you have a bond with your teachers. So there's also several teachers that have played a big role in my life, and obviously the friends that I've come close to. The way the W&L social system is set up with the fraternities and sororities, you really, really get a good chance to become close with a great group of people. So it's hard to put a finger on it, but I think the way the school is set up, I've been influenced in a positive way by a whole bunch of people.
You wrestled at the 197-pound class as a junior, but you're now back at 285. How challenging was it to compete at a different weight class?
In hindsight, it was probably a mistake. It made last year a little bit more challenging in terms of my life outside of wrestling. Wrestling practices 2 hours every day, and when I look at wrestling this season, 2 hours a day is a lot of work and a lot of hard work we put into the wrestling room. But when you're cutting weight and going down a weight class, the challenge spills outside of the wrestling room when you're looking at what you're eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and limiting your fluid intake the 3 days before wrestling matches. So it provided a much bigger challenge than I had faced my freshman and sophomore year and this year in terms of life outside of wrestling. But at the same time, I think it helped me develop a lot of willpower and a lot of self-control and discipline that I haven't been forced to deal with in other years.
Looking forward, what are the keys to the general success at the Centennial Conference Championships in February?
I think one of the biggest things, we have a really young team this year. Most of our starters are freshmen and sophomores. So I think one of the key factors is going to be just wrestling outside of ourselves. We have several people that should be able to place and at least live up to their seeds. But I think in order for us to do well and do better than a lot of people expect us to do, we need to do just that. We need to wrestle better than people expect us to do. And one of the things I've been saying a lot in practice is our biggest competition is our potential. And if we wrestle to our potential and really work as hard as we can, I think we can do great things. But it's just a matter of doing the best we can and surprising a lot of people because, like I said, we're a young team and have a lot to prove.
John, good luck the rest of the season, and thank you for joining us here.
No problem. Thank you.
With me now is Julianne Miata, senior women's swimming captain from Valhalla, New York. Julianne, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Looking back on your collegiate career, was competing in Division III athletics everything you'd hoped it would be?
It absolutely is. My sister went to a Division I school where she competed in diving, and she always mentioned how there was so much stress on athletics, and I really wanted an experience that kind of gave me a great balance with academics and athletics, knowing that academics come first. So W&L has been that for me in every instance possible.
How has the Washington and Lee swimming program changed since you arrived on campus?
It has changed significantly, actually. My year, there's only 3 senior girls, and the 3 of us have been under the direction of 3 different coaches in our 4 years, and it significantly changed because we were definitely more structured and more disciplined now. Our practice schedule has gotten so much more of a time commitment. We do mornings now, lifting is required, practices are at least 2.5 hours every day, and the teams that we go up against are just much more competitive. So it's definitely changed for the better.
What has been your favorite experience as a student athlete at Washington and Lee?
My favorite experience is probably the family that I have just with the swim team alone. I mean, coming onto campus as a freshman, the captains and many of the upperclassmen swimmers immediately came to my dorm room while I was moving in and introduced themselves, and it was like I was immediately welcomed on campus. And there's nothing more rewarding than feeling comfortable like that immediately when you walk on, and that's followed down with all the captains. We do that every year, and it's great to just see familiar faces on campus that have gone through the vigorous practice that I have.
What will it take for the Generals to win their 19th ODAC swimming championship later this spring?
To win the 19th ODAC championship, I think I hate to say this so confidently, but I think it will be rather easy because we have just worked so tremendously hard this year, and we've sized ourselves up against our biggest competitors in the ODAC, Randolph-Macon, and I just don't think that they have as much talent as we do. They have very talented girls, but not the depth that our program does, and I think a lot of our girls are looking more towards the NCAAs and qualifying for that meet rather than the ODACs.
Julianne, we wish you luck the rest of the year, and thank you for joining us here.
Thank you.
This Saturday is another busy one for Washington and Lee athletics. Both basketball teams will be at home. The women tip off against Emory and Henry at 2, while the men take on Hampton-Sydney at 7. The men's and women's swimming teams travel to Marymount. Wrestling competes in a quad match at Stevens, and the indoor track teams will be at the Liberty Invitational. For W&L Sports Weekly, I'm Jeremy Franklin.